Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the the Albany Common Council Public Safety Committee meeting. Okay. Welcome to the meeting. It is Tuesday, October 22nd, 2024. With me, I'm Tom Hoey, the chair of the committee, and with me, in front of me, I have Jack Flynn. I also have Kelly Kimbrough, Alfredo Ballerin, committee member Sonia Frederick, and we have Common Council President Corey Ellis. And supporting us tonight, we have Jake Iceland, Brian Jimenez, and Shaniqua Jackson, and Alyssa Tamara. All righty. So the purpose of tonight's meeting was to get some information on the recent killing of a person by a house filled with pit bulls. I had invited the chief, and I thought the chief was going to be here tonight. I just heard that he had to cancel this morning because the second part of the meeting was to thank him for the work that he's done in the city of Albany, that he's going to be leaving. But, I mean, he's still with us through November, and I think maybe into early December. So maybe we can get him back at a future meeting. I would hope so. So we do have some public comments tonight. Why don't I start with those? I see, is it Etanine Posel? Did I pronounce your name right? Just call you what? I'm sorry. William? Come on up. Yeah, we didn't think we were going to be that easy, did we? Yeah, we're going to try to keep this, your comment to 5 minutes if possible. But please state your name and your address and tell us why you're here tonight.
Okay. Hello, everyone. My name is Etienne Duzal. People call me William, and I live at 199 Myrtle Ave. My issue is that recently I was walking my dog with a friend, and we were just out of nowhere. This pit bull attacked us and grabbed onto Olivia's dog's neck. Sorry. It attacked one of our dogs while we were walking. It didn't have a collar. It didn't have a leash. There was no owner in sight. And we were struggling to fight it for about 5 minutes. And I had to call over. I was screaming for help, and I was asking for people to call 911. No one was doing it. I had to do that myself. And I got the attention of 3 grown men who helped me. And thank goodness they were there. They saved my dog and her own. Our dogs weren't fatally wounded or anything. They're both okay, non-critical condition. But I do want to stress that it took 3 grown men to restrain this dog before the police could even get there. And I'm pretty sure that animal had the intent to kill. And that concerns me. Thank you.
Thank you. What street did this occur on? Do you remember?
Sorry, could you repeat the question?
What street did it occur on, the attack?
We were about in the middle of Lincoln Park by the construction site. There was a pool being I don't want to say renovated, but yeah.
Okay. Thank you, and I'm sorry that happened to you, but we appreciate you telling us, and we will definitely look into what we can do. Go ahead, Jack.
Yeah, how long did it take for the police to arrive when the 911 call occurred?
I don't want to make any solid claims. That my sense of time was very distorted during the whatever that was, conflict. But I want to say about 10, 15 minutes. Yeah.
Any
more
other
questions?
questions for William?
Yeah.
Thank you, sir. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
Okay, next up we have Olivia Rose.
Hello, everyone. My name is Olivia Rose. I am 16 years old, and I live on Morden Avenue. As you have heard from my friend, we were walking our dogs when the pit bull came out of nowhere and started attacking my dog. This was a heavily emotional event for me. I was completely helpless in this situation. I was worried for my dog's life, for my own life and safety, and for the very helpful passerbys that were able to, after about like 5 minutes of struggling, of my dog crying in pain, not being able to do anything. He is a small 30-pound little fluff ball, and this dog over twice his size starts attacking him, and there was nothing we really could do at the time. People tried punching the dog, tried to do everything they could to get my dog to safety. After they were able to restrain the pit bull, me and a very helpful woman were able to carry our dogs, who were now injured and bleeding, back to my house. And by the time it took us to get them water, to calm them down, after a few minutes, that's when I headed back. So it took the police quite a while to get there, which is, it was difficult because if those people, after we had to wait a few minutes, it was just me and my friend struggling with the pit bull. There was no one else for a good solid 3 minutes before they were able to help and before the police were called. But I was heavily afraid that my dog was going to die in that moment because there was really nothing we could do. It took a lot of time and a lot of effort for the dog to be restrained. We got my dog loose, went after it again because we couldn't hold on to the pit bull. After my dog was freed for the second time, it went after my friend's dog, who also is quite small. And this was just a very traumatic event. This also happened yesterday night, if I didn't mention. And I know that a lot of other similar experiences have happened in the city of Albany, and this is just a completely unacceptable event that will get people and our pets hurt. So if anything can be done about that, I would really appreciate just being able to make sure that these dogs, these pit bulls, will not be hurting anyone else. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions? Curios.
So by then, apparently I wasn't here for this. I was back at my house trying to tend the dogs, but I heard from one of the people who helped that the original owner came out of nowhere, leashed up the dog, and left before anyone could do anything, which was, I'm not really sure what to think about that. They were not there. I got there I got there the same time the police did. And I heard like the dog was just leashed on like a regular like fabric leash or something, was taken away, not like typical stuff, but yeah.
Thank you. Go ahead. Next up, we have Lara Ferran Rose. I'm sorry, it was Laura, right? I'm sorry, I didn't read it right. Thank you. Well, yeah.
And just want to appreciate that they're our future too. And it's good that they came to witness the good work you do here.
Yeah, just give us your name and where
My
you
name
live.
is Laura Farron Rose. I'm at 114 Morton Avenue in the South End, and I am a mom. I am also Block Ambassador with the iVillage program from last year. I also had a past career as a professional interviewer. So for the last 5 hours, this is just within the 24 hours of this happening to the children, I have interviewed 6 people, which includes the past animal control person, the police officers that came, so I can answer your questions. 2 dog owners that have pit bull mixes that are on our street, as well as the veterinary clinic on our street as well. I'm going to summarize because they're not here today. I was asked to share their messages with each one, but that would be me speaking their words. So instead, I will give you the summary view of what I believe the bigger picture is. Number one is that while I have personally every right to say get rid of pit bulls in the city of Albany, of which Colorado did and other places did, that is not what I would advocate. It is not the dog, it is the owner. It is the methodology and responsibility. We don't need to blame animals, beautiful animals, for the work of people. So having said that, there is a responsibility, and there seems to be an epidemic. I call this because when I was their age, I lost my dog to a pit bull at age 16. Mine was eaten. The same dog that was attacked last night, I also experienced it when it was 2 weeks. I had it for 2 weeks, and I was attacked by a pit bull mix. The only thing that saved us is I threw him in a trash can. So this has been going on for generations. Again, it's not the dog, it's the people. And I want to share with you what I gained from the 3 questions that I asked, which are, how did you come to own this dog? Why do you think that there's so many of this particular dog characteristics in this community in the South End? And what advice do you have for legislation to consider to prevent these kinds of events from happening in the future? And summarizing all of them, here's what I got. A majority of the owners of pit bull mixes in this community, when I say this, I can only speak for the South End, did not plan to be dog owners. They are 2nd or 3rd owners. What I've experienced hearing is that some people find the dogs tied to trees in the park. They've been abandoned. The one gentleman, that's how he got his dog. No intention to own it, but he found it. The other person, a disabled man who has a dog, said that he took it from a female, a woman he knows that also lives in the community, who once the dog got to maturity, she couldn't handle it, and so he took it in. This man is clearly not physically capable of managing this dog, but yet he's with a pit bull mix. Mind you, the dog was on his porch with the dog on a chain, but the chain extended all the way to the sidewalk, and he's only had this dog 2 weeks. The other owner that I spoke to, he is a man who's had pit bulls or pit bull mixes his entire life, since childhood. He was from Georgia. He was, I would say, a good dog owner, but yet I told him, because I have trained 8 dogs myself in my lifetime, that the leash and collar system that he had was inappropriate for that particular dog's weight and stature. So we have a combination of people who weren't even intending to be a dog owner, collecting dogs, that they seem to be around here. And this is factually, you can see this, because if you go to the Mohawk Hudson Valley shelter, like we did to get a dog, our choices were pit bull mix or mastiff. That's what they have. This dog is available right here to be given to anyone that wants a dog. This is a type of dog that, as someone who's raised 8 dogs myself, I would not take on as a first-time dog owner. This is not that kind of dog. And when I say dog, I'm characterizing the type that have a lock and hold characteristic. It could be 4 or 5 different breeds. I would also like to share the the police officer who assisted them, I spoke to today. came and shared that he himself was bitten 8 months ago from a dog that was tied in Washington Park that he was untying. He had to wait for animal control. Not only did the dog bite him, but he got them away, and the dog came back to get him again. And he was not able to make it tonight. I also spoke to the veterinary clinic on Morton Avenue. Strangely, the woman there who is a clinician who's worked there for 13 years was unaware of a problem of public bitings. Here's what I read into that. It's not that it's that within the practice, those people who bring their dogs to vets are typically not the people who would be having dogs that would be problematic. So that makes sense. She's not seeing dogs in her own community. That also says to me that since they don't have many pit bulls that are coming to that space, that those who own those mixes are not even going to veterinarians and certainly not going within their community, because that would be a conflict of interest if there was a challenge. So my recommendation, and the children and I will be looking through the paperwork that you just gave. Recommendation is that, one, is not get rid of the dog, but please put in grants and funding for community-related events, printed material that can be presented at public events to talk about proper dog training, about the specifics of why of a particular typing of dog and the importance of understanding how to take care of it, as well as funding for places like the Mohawk Society to do training, behavioral training of anyone who wants to take in a dog that should never be a first-time dog. I feel that there should be some sort of check system of letting people know what kind of system they're going to get into when they have a particular types of breeds, rather than like the woman who, once the dog became mature, realized this was not the dog for her family, which seems to be a thing that does happen. Thank you.
Is there any questions from the committee? Go ahead, Jack.
You said there was a municipality that banned pit bulls?
Colorado.
The whole state?
According to your animal control person, I only heard one word. You'll have to look into it.
And I just want to say that suggestion of literature to dogs is great, because our police department does a great job going to many community events.
You're echoing.
Our police department does a great job going to a lot of community events throughout the city with barbecues and pop-ups. It would be great for them to have literature and information about dog
owners. It would be fabulous if the community that is having a challenge was provided with information right at those public events, grant funding, and there are plenty of community programs, including the Alliance, the Lincoln Park Alliance, the Children's Cafe, Radix. I'm with the South End Butterfly Sanctuary. There are tons of us who are willing to give material out to help our community, but we need someone to do the printing and give us material to do that. And I do have the incident numbers of the police.
Go ahead, sir.
Thank you for coming. Thank you for all the information you gave, your investigative or your interview skills that you enacted today, and also thank you to the youth that joined us so bravely and spoke about the incidents that occurred last night. I just have a question on the follow-up with the police officers, just to piggyback off of the question from Council President Ellis. Do you know if there was any follow-through or knowledge of whose dog that was?
So according to the officer who was on the premise, because the owner is unknown and there's nothing more they do. They've completed their job. They're there if anyone wants to, they provided an incident number. Anything further than that, unless someone gets bit or there's someone to track, they just basically turn it into an incident number. I did tell him, though, I was a little bit perturbed that he did not provide that incident number to the children or provide us with anything, because it took me about 3 hours to track down who, when, where. They couldn't even find it in the computer. Mm-hmm. So I don't know how efficient they're tracking dog attacks, but I won't say one way or another. The animal control was did show presence. So I'm thankful, and I thank the officer for attending.
Thank you. And just a follow up to that, so it sounded like some bystanders potentially saw the dog get put in a leash and collar and then go off, right?
The children told me that somehow the dog was taken away and someone removed the dog. So someone close by, I'm suspecting, I know which house. There's about 3 to 4 houses. We all kind of know who has whose dogs.
Mm-hmm.
So I have suspect of which one it is, but they didn't see it they don't know at the moment.
Got it. Thank you.
And all your legislation that I just noticed, and we didn't read it through solely, seems to be about dogs being on leashes with an owner. That's great, but this is a scenario where people are just leaving them. That's one scenario where we have a problem where people are just bringing their dogs here. They're just here. And secondly, they're getting loose. So I don't know how you tackle this looseness issue, because this is a whole different can of worms.
Thank you, Laura. I do have a question. A lot of people have like Ring doorbells or doorbells that have video cameras. Did the officers look around?
My community is behind the times.
Okay.
I'm the first on my block to have a Ring.
Okay.
And I am encouraging people, but there's a slow transition happening because we are having ridiculous crime, and we have technology now. So as block ambassador, I'm literally going door to door to tell people about lead challenges and technologies. So that's part of why the iVillage created a program to help neighbors to be more cohesive.
Well, thank you for what you've done, and thank the young, nobody should have to go through what they just went through. I'm glad it didn't turn out really tragic, but it's bad. And I've walked my dog and got attacked, and I try to separate the 2 dogs, and I got bit, and it's not good. But we'll continue, and we're definitely going to look into this. So just stay tuned. Thank you.
Thank you, and I'm glad these children get to witness that they don't have to be silent victims, that they can come and speak to you, that they can be heard, and that they can let others their age know that there's good work being done here. Thank you.
Thank you. Lieutenant Flack, do you want to, do you know about it? Or? No, about, why don't you come up? We'll have to ask you a question. If you know, you can come in this way. Do you want to just introduce yourself, Lieutenant?
Sure. My name is Lieutenant Willie Flack, City of Albany Police Department, Special Operations Unit.
Well, one of the reasons that we called this meeting was there was a horrendous attack around 10 days ago where the gentleman was, we don't know the full details, but apparently he was going into a yard and was attacked by 22 or 23 dogs. So we're curious. We wanted to get more information about that attack, to report to us. And I don't know, do you have any information that you could share with us?
Sure. The address on Central Avenue, it was mainly of those dogs, 15 of them were puppies, so they were actually inside the house. There were 9 adult dogs. Of the 9 adult dogs, there were 2 main aggressors. One of the main aggressors was ultimately shot and killed by an officer. The second was taken along with all the other dogs to Mohawk Hudson Humane Society, where all those dogs remain until pending cases against the owners start to go to court.
Okay, one of the things that we heard, and again, that's why we call in the police department to get the actual facts, is that there was multiple calls for that address, that there was dogs on it, or it looked like they were training, or it was a, a puppy mill?
So I'm not familiar with it being a puppy mill. We had been there on previous occasions. The adult dogs were taken on a previous occasion and brought to Mohawk Hudson Humane Society, but in that instance, it wasn't because they were aggressive or anything was going on. It was because the house was, the residents of the house were arrested for other issues, and they had to be taken for safekeeping.
Okay, I'm going to open up. Does the committee have any? Go ahead, Alfredo.
Thank you, Lieutenant. So two quick things. So all of the dogs are no longer at that residence, correct?
That's correct.
Okay. And they're all at the Humane Society except the one that was shot?
That's correct.
Have the owners of the dogs, are they being put on any charges?
As of right now, no. There's still pending investigations going on, both criminally and through Ag and Markets law. So once we vet and get all our I's dotted and T's crossed, it's a very serious incident which occurred, and we don't want to rush into something with not enough to adequately have these people answer for anything that wrong they may have done.
So the individuals that rented the apartment, do they live in that house as well, or were they just using it for the dogs?
To the best of my knowledge, one was staying there, the male. Not sure if it was his legal address, but he was staying there.
And at this point, is there anyone staying in that apartment?
As of right now, there are. In another 15 minutes, there may not be.
So I guess, so I know we have laws on the books about, where you can breed and what you can and who can and cannot breed. What have you, do you know of any other legislation that other cities have to try to deal with these issues, specifically with illegal breeding and unlicensed dogs? Because that's, we were told that these dogs didn't have licenses to our city.
That's not totally true.
Okay.
So what is true is one of the 9 dogs had a current license. The other 8 were previously licensed but had them expire and did not have them renewed. As far as other legislation in other jurisdictions, I'm not aware of many that preclude people from breeding, but everyone has some type of rule against breeding puppies and creating puppy mills. Our agency, in fact, our animal control officers, along with 2 of my investigators that handle animal cruelty cases, charged recently someone with having a puppy mill, I believe, over maybe Morris Avenue in that area over there, less than a year ago. So we do investigate these things, and we do follow through, and when we're found, we do arrest and prosecute, along with the DA's office. We have a very good working relationship with them.
And what are the penalties or the sanctions for running a puppy mill?
Under Ag and Markets, it's going to end up being civil torts. It's not going to be anything criminal. The animal cruelty cases, if they're being cruel to them or keeping them in unfit conditions, then that can be criminal.
Okay. And do we have anything on the books that limits the number of licenses that a person can have on dogs?
I can't speak intelligently to that. I do know we have on the books the number of dogs that can be in a residence, and I believe that is 5. However, what we find happening is that if I do have dogs that have puppies, what I'll do is the downstairs neighbor will get 5, the guy across the hall will get 5, and I'll keep 5, and then my puppies and my dogs are all separated. They're in one roof, but different people have them in different apartments, because it's not for a total household, it's for your apartment.
Thank you.
You're welcome, sir.
Go ahead,
Well,
President Ellis.
Preliminary
Can you speak into the mic? Oops.
Preliminary investigation, was there any way you could tell how long those dogs might have been there?
In that house,
Yeah, and that,
they were there, the same dogs were there from when we took them, I can't remember how many months ago it was,
Oh, so
sir,
you-
but, so they're the same dogs. Yeah,
they
yeah,
just came back?
They
Okay.
came back, at the time they were licensed, they were able to go get them, they picked them up and they brought them back and then since let their license expire, so they were living there.
Gotcha, thank you.
Yes, sir.
Mike, oh,
She had her hand up. Go ahead.
Hi, thank you for the information. The victim, can you provide a little bit more detail? Was that a victim that went into the house and an altercation happened, or was it an innocent bystander?
I don't mean to interrupt you, but I'm not at liberty at this point to
Okay,
go any further into what role or why that victim was where he was.
understood. Second question for you, the animal cruelty jurisdiction that you were just mentioning there, do you know if is there any form of animal cruelty if you have a lot of animals in one place, or is it more so just if the conditions are poor?
It's correct. It's conditions, treatment, overdriving, not necessarily numbers. Numbers come down to what our ordinances are.
Okay,
So that's kind of where we go and what we go after people for. Obviously, if they have 10 dogs in one apartment and we can prove that all 10 have been living there, we'll also try to go after them for having too many animals under our general city ordinance. But yeah, so there's, not to my knowledge, is there any limit on the number of animals you can actually have.
okay, thank you.
Jack?
kind of what she said, how were the conditions? Like, were these reasonable conditions? Were these dogs like neglected when you guys got there? Like, was everything in good order? Was there any red flags that this
So
was an issue?
what I can say in relation to that is that the conditions were such that we believe charging them is warranted. So that's where we are with that right now.
Thank you.
Alfredo?
Oh, no, I'm sorry. Sorry, Lieutenant. Just,
No, no problem.
So what, is there any legislation that you would recommend for us to do to try to address this issue? I mean, because, to me, it seems like it's a huge nuisance, and there's some nuisance language we can put in there, but more, like, to have 15 dogs, was it 15 or 9 adults and 15 puppies? Is that
Correct.
the number?
9 adults, 15 bucks.
So 24 dogs, that seems like we should be able to do something to try to prevent that.
So short of some type of legislation for a nuisance, if you get a certain number of calls to a house, if you that type of thing, but you can't legislate behavior, like adult people's behaviors. We can sit here and talk about that, but these are people that have no regulation on their behaviors and what it is they're doing, or what it is they're doing with these dogs. I'm a dog owner myself, have been for the majority of my life. I don't get dogs for the sole purpose of them being aggressive, to breed them, to try to breed more aggressive dogs. And that's kind of what we're seeing. That's behavior. You can't legislate that out of people. The only way you can do that is to try to follow the laws that we have on the books as far as the criminality of these things, or go for legislation to try to have these behaviors become criminal. And that's something that's bigger than where I am right now. But I can tell you this, there's a lot of people that get behind that. Everybody wants something done, right? So when something happens, someone wants to be able to blame someone or something. And unfortunately, what we have here is we have a point in our community and in our society where this has become ingrained to have these dogs, whether it's for status, whether it's for protection, whatever it be. And whoever has the biggest, fattest dog is the biggest, fattest dude, right, or woman. And that's a mindset that has to be, driven out of our community. So,
How many, I'm sorry, my last question, Lieutenant, I apologize. How many calls were at this house?
So, to my knowledge, for that particular thing, again, we were there 3 times within the last 2 years, all right? Which in the grand scheme of things isn't really a whole lot of times, but again, I cannot speak on anything other that has happened at that house because it's not my wheelhouse and it's not in my unit. And just for clarification, when I said I'm the Lieutenant for Special Operations, I oversee our mounted unit, our traffic unit, our K-9 unit, and the animal control unit.
And just not to put you on the spot, we are in the middle of budget season. Would you recommend us trying to find resources to hire additional animal control officers?
I don't know that you can hire enough animal control officers to deal with the issue that's going on here. I mean, I might get myself in some trouble here, but, you know, perhaps, you know, we already have a agreement with the Sheriff's Department for large-scale cases where we'll work with them in a joint task force to arrest people to vet out our warrants. We have a very close working relationship with the Humane Society. They have peace officers. So when we had this instance, we will call them, they'll come up and they give mutual aid and they'll help us out. You know, adding another animal control officer or two, maybe, but I tell you what would help is possibly at some point trying to have either our guys or encompass it into an overall county type thing, all be peace officers. Because at that point, you know, they can do a lot of this work themselves with it, you know, with the aid of officers. Right now, if we have animal cruelty cases, they kind of have to wait for an officer to do the criminality side of all that. They can issue tickets under general ordinances, they can, you know, do those type of things, but anything that becomes criminal, they no longer really take a part in. I do have 2 officers that have been assigned, that are assigned, that went to have gone to training in order to handle these cases. Possibly, you know, something along those lines, but I mean, it's just the other side of that is hiring people in general. Everyone's having problems hiring people.
Kelly and then Sonia.
Yep. Thank you, Lieutenant Flack. What are the hours of operation for animal control?
We have three shifts. There's one person on each shift. The morning shift starts at 7 o'clock in the morning. The next shift comes in at 11 in the afternoon, so we have overlapping there. And then the last shift comes on, Dave's gonna kill me for not really knowing this, I believe 8 o'clock, and he works from like 8 to 4. But they are on a rotating schedule where if one of them isn't there, they then have an on-call. So they get assigned, you know, monthly to on-call. The other thing is, in the grand scheme of things, our animal control, we keep calling them animal control, they're, you know, they originally started as dog wardens and then they were animal control. They don't trap animals. Like a lot of people believe that these guys can go and they have catch poles and all this stuff. They don't trap animals. If an animal's out running around and loose, police have to go to those calls with them. So when people are calling about a large dog running around in the south end or a large dog around the north end, you know, wherever it may be, they'll call animal control. But the next part to that is that an officer has to go because unfortunately, if that dog becomes aggressive and an action of violence has to be met out against it, animal control can't do that. They don't have weapons to do that, which is correct. So our animal control are not peace officers. They do not carry firearms. They do not do those things. So in order for them to go to any type of call like that, they have to have an officer there with them.
So just to follow up on that, thank you. That's good information for us because I didn't realize that they wouldn't have. They're not police officers, right? So they don't have firearms. They don't have other means to control situations like that. What is the requirements to be an animal control officer currently?
So they fill out an application. We vet them, and if they are hired, we send them to school. We send them to training for it. Off the top of my head, I don't want to give a number of hours. I know my investigators have at least 40 hours of training. My animal control officers have close to that. But again, they're not police officers. So there's different parts of that the officers have to go to, or the investigators have to go to that the animal control guys don't.
Okay. And when you were mentioning the shift coverage, is it fair to say that we have full coverage then 7 days a week?
If there's not somebody physically present here, our supervisors are authorized to call them in. And they come in and they handle. But again, if you have a dog running around in the street, they are not going to come here until the officer has that dog contained. So, so that's unfortunately how that works right now for us.
Last question / comment. I'm sure we all get a lot of calls for animal concerns in our wards, but often when residents are trying to reach out to animal control, they're not getting through that line. And so then they reach out to their council member, who then is able to make a connection, hopefully. So are you aware of like a issue with the phone services?
So it's not an issue per se with the phone services. Those calls go to a voicemail, and I can tell you there is an average of 85 voicemails left every day for those guys. There's a larger thing going on with them, because when people say they call about animals, there's certain things like, technically our guys aren't supposed to be running around trying to capture cats. Cats are feral animals. Unless it's in someone's house or it's someone's pet, normally they're not supposed to do that. Mohawk Hudson gets inundated with cats because people decide they want to feed cats in the backyard, and they all come around a house, and now people fall on them because they're nuisances. Our guys do go and do that, but they also get called for dead animals. Up until 7, 8 years ago, dead animals were handled by DGS. A dead animal, and I'm not trying to be insensitive to anyone here who loves pets or loves animals. Dead animals are trash, they're garbage at that point. Our ordinance and Ag and Markets law dictates that you are to wrap a dead animal in 2 plastic bags and put it in your landfill. Animal control doesn't need to be going to those calls. If they weren't going to those calls, they might be back at the station in order to answer the phone for the people who need them for actual animal control calls.
That change was made 7 or 8 years ago, you said?
Correct. So during that time, there was, I can't remember if it was the avian bird flu or one of those. There's a lot of rabid animals running around and a lot of illness. So there was an edict put down through the state, NCON, that all animals had to be brought to be observed. Birds, dogs, all kinds of stuff. That stopped about 7 years ago. But animal control responding to those calls never did. So, there are a lot of calls there. The majority of them even on C-Click Fix. If you look on C-Click Fix for animal control complaints, the majority of them are for dead animals. So yes, we are aware of the phone issue per se, but they're following up. I'm actually on that line. I'm also on the email. So when I get it and I see it and I listen to them, if it's not a dead animal call, for them to go pick up a dead animal, I let their sergeant know to send them out to the call to follow up. And we do make them follow up on calls that need and warrant to be followed up on.
Okay. Thank you for that. And we are, as Councilmember Ballard mentioned, in budget season, meeting with DGS tomorrow, actually. So that is something that I will be bringing up, because if it's taking away the time of your animal control officers that you have, maybe we can look to, go back to how it was before, since it's no longer required.
I can tell you every other jurisdiction, that's what it is. So if you find a dead animal on the side of the highway, the OGS goes to pick it up.
Okay.
You go to the town of Gilderland and there's a dead cat in the middle of the road, their DGS goes to pick it up.
Okay.
I think we may be the only city that sends our animal control to pick up squirrels and all kinds of stuff in the park and everything else. It's
Interesting. Thank you for letting us know that.
not a problem.
Thank you, and I had a question, but I'll let Jack go first. Go ahead, Jack.
I just want to follow up. Yes, DPW for the county does pick up the deer and all the animals. They have somebody that's their job. But my question is, so you mandate the animal control people if we're short? Are they mandated to
So
come in?
they're on an on-call. So if someone calls in sick, whoever is on call, they are mandated to come in when they're called. So, and that works on a rotating schedule. So, every month, there is a list that comes out. First month, Animal Control Officer A is on call. So if Animal Control Officer B calls out or is sick or it would create a shortage, if anything happens, that on-call Animal Control Officer gets called in for all those calls. So it's not a mandate to force the guy before them to stay,
So he knows.
because there's already somebody able to come in and take those calls.
So we're gonna have to assume that these animal control workers are working on average 50 to 55 hours a week because of the vacation, the sick time people get. So we, from a budgetary perspective, I feel
I don't know if
we
it's
may
that
need
often.
another one.
I don't know if it's that often. I know I also do their Chronos, so I also do their payroll. There's times where they get called in a lot, but then there's lulls when they don't. It depends. It really does depend on the season.
All right, thanks.
Yeah, Lieutenant, one of my thoughts were, because last year during the budget season, I had trouble in the 15th ward with a dog that was being abused and died. And nobody came. There was multiple calls put because the dog was in the backyard howling. So I brought up last year, why don't we try to get more animal control officers? This year, Councilmember Farrell brought up the same thing when Deputy Chief Betuello was here, saying, would it help? How many animal control officers do we have right now? Is it 3?
3, correct.
Okay. And I did talk to Deputy Chief Betuello earlier today when he said he couldn't make it, and I told him what the idea was. We have 75 open lines right now for APD, for sworn officers, and we were hoping maybe we could shift some of them over and hire more animal control, but maybe, you know.
They're my guys, so I will never say no to more personnel. However, I think it's incumbent on us, not only as an agency but as a city, to do everything we can to get our police officer numbers back up to some sort of semblance of our guys, not, because you're talking about those animal control officers possibly working 50 hours a week. There's a bevy of officers working more than 50, 60,
No,
70
and we
hours a
understand
week.
that.
So I think it would be wiser.
It's easier, though, to hire an animal control, and that could be a stepping stone into APD, right?
I think it's not only, and I will say that only because we had an animal control officer leave within the last 3 years, and it took us a long time to hire another one. And again, because of the issues we're seeing here in the city with the type of animals that they're dealing with, a lot of people who would go to, say, like a Guilderland or go to maybe, a Voorheesville to work as an animal control officer, they are not coming to Albany to have to deal with Albany city problems. Just
Well,
like
we
they're
got to
not
deal with
going
it.
to
That's
Schenectady.
part of the job of the Public Safety Committee, is make recommendations. We don't tell people what to do, but we make recommendations. We can help with the budget. One of the things, I want to bring up is who enforces, we have signs all over the city, clean up after your dog. Is that animal control supposed to do that?
That would be if it can be vetted out and documented and we can find who it is that's doing it, yes, that is them that would be issued.
And if we had somebody driving around on patrol, they could maybe catch stuff like
But
that.
that's what they do now.
Yeah.
But in order to police that type of behavior, again, we can't legislate and police out people's behaviors. You'd have to have an animal control unit the size of a police agency.
Okay.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And
We're just hashing stuff out. A lot of this stuff, I see people's faces. They're shocked, and and people tuning into this meeting are going to be like, what are we going to do about it? And this is all investigating.
No.
And I appreciate your honesty. I appreciate you coming in here and talking to us about it. But I do have concerns that how much, if one of the 3 officers that we have right now gets sick, we're down to 2 for 7 days a week, 24 hours a day. And yes, they're going to only respond to the real, but we're not being proactive in my mind. And one of the big complaints, I got in so many emails when we announced this meeting about unleashed dogs, and you heard about what happened earlier. I mean, you go to the golf course during the winter, there's dogs running all over the place. I mean, I got to go through and try to figure out what is the legislation that we have. Are you allowed to have a dog just run free? And that's,
Well, if the golf course is deemed a dog park during the wintertime, absolutely they do. And
Okay.
that is, unfortunately, whether it's actually in our legislation or not, it's what people believe. So during the winter, yes, they can run around unleashed all over the golf
but
course.
over in the golf course, we do have a separate area that's fenced
And
off
that
to
is-
bring your dog.
I believe
Because
that is
I've brought
for-
my dog there.
I believe that's for when golf season is in session.
Okay. What about like Washington Park? Are you allowed to let your dog run loose?
Well, yes and no. It is a park, and no, they're not supposed to totally run through there. However, we have created an environment in which that has been going on for decades in a certain specific area, and people actually go to that certain specific area. You might be better off allowing that to be the dog park or be a dog area, and I know the Conservancy doesn't want it fenced in, but just make people aware of it. And then, I don't want to use this word, well, be very stern on people who go outside of those areas.
Yeah.
We can do that. I mean, that's, we can try to facilitate something like that, but
And what we've seen, and, if we look back during COVID, people were trapped in their houses, everybody went out and adopted dogs. And then all of a sudden, COVID is, still there, but it's not as deadly. People are out again, and all of a sudden people realize, oh, I adopted a dog and I no longer want it. And we heard the story where they're left tied up to trees and people just do whatever they want. So, and you're right, how do you legislate morality? And I mean, it gets tough. But what we have to do, though, is enforce legislation that's already on the books or put more legislation. I'm kind of monopolizing the time here. So I saw Sonia first and then Alfredo.
Just a quick point for council members as we talk about this, because I know there's an interest in terms of potentially animal control officers, but in terms of council powers, we are not, in terms of budget adjustments, we are not able to touch personnel services, so positions. However, obviously we have our budget intent memo where we can strongly advocate for some of those vacancies, maybe to allocate resources this way. But I just want us to be mindful of what we can and cannot do.
Can the chief make a recommendation? Is he allowed to, when something like this comes up, budget hasn't been passed.
If they want to, if the department wants to amend their budget, right, that's a route, but we can't technically do that process.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you again for being here, because I think there are some things that I'm glad you shared. I always found it unusual to have to call animal control to pick up a dead skunk or a dead squirrel off the street. So I'm glad that you brought that up so that we can, if that's something that's not a legal requirement by the state and it's just a policy at the city level, that we can look at that so we can free up some of those, working hours of the individuals. I do think we need to increase the force. I don't think we should take it from another part of the APD budget. I know we are down officers quite a bit, and that may seem like we're going to surplus, but we never surplus because those funds that would be used to pay for those salary lines are then used to cover the overtime to still cover the shifts. So unfortunately, the funds are still needed to be able to keep everything afloat. I do think we need to find new funding sources to be able to increase the number of animal control officers so that we can, have a more proactive means of trying to address some of the issues. I guess my last question to you, Lieutenant, is, what are the sanctions right now if you have a dog that's not licensed in the city, or if your license expires and you don't renew?
So, I mean, they get ticketed for it. There's a fine. The dog is taken, and they cannot get it back until they pay those fines and get a stamp from City Hall to go over to Humane Society and retrieve their animal.
So do we have anything now in our system? And I'm pretty sure we don't, but wherever a license expires, do we go and proactively?
We do not, and actually I was going to try and touch base in reference to even having a mechanism. I know it probably costs more money to have our animal control officers or my unit be able to actually see those licenses the way these guys see them over where they are, because that might make it even easier for us, because right now, you know, the clerk's office has 1,000,001 other things going on as well, just like everyone else. If we were able to be able just to go into a database and look to see, okay, we've been at this house X amount of time, you know, does this dog still have its license? Is it still valid? Because we're starting to see that the same way our officers are becoming familiar with people, our animal control officers are becoming familiar with houses. So that may aid in it, but as it stands right now, we don't have a mechanism in which there's an alarm that says, hey, this person's done. I mean, City of Albany at any given point in time could have, you know, a couple thousand dog licenses, and even with 2 more animal control officers to be able to go and ferry all that out along with everything else that's going on. So the way that's managed is by when we get those complaints, when we get the dog barking complaints, when we get the unleashed dogs, when we get those complaints, when the officers go there, they'll say, hey, is your license current? Oh yeah, my license current, So now they have the name and now they can check. And if the license isn't current, then they will go back, issue those tickets and do what they have to do in order to bring them into compliance.
Thank you, and thank you for being here and sharing so much information.
Like I said, it's not a problem. You know, public servant, I'm here to help.
Well, I got another couple, and then I'm going to give it to Sonia. An animal with rabies, do you get calls on that, and how is that handled? That if somebody sees a raccoon in the middle of the day staggering around, who handles that?
DEC handles that.
Okay.
So NCON, DEC, they handle wild animals. We do not have the capability to trap them. I would still advise people to call the police. The police can dispatch an animal. It has to be done with care, especially if it's believed to be rabbit. And then that animal is sent out to Cornell. And there's a very specific way it has to be sent out there, but it gets sent out there to be tested.
Now, do you get calls sometimes? Does animal control get calls? Well, I see, because people didn't realize they had to call the state or the police?
They do. Yeah, they
Okay.
do. And that's, you know, that's part of the other number of calls that they get. Where they can, they'll go out and then advise them if it's something that's immediate or urgent, but it is outside of their wheelhouse.
Okay. And I just want to follow up with the Mohawk Hudson, animal rescue. A good friend of mine's daughter works there, and she's been there quite a few years, but got attacked by a mastiff in there. Her shoulder ripped open, over 100 bites, and she still goes back to work, because there are people out there that really do care about animals and they want to do the right thing. I know Troy had trouble where I don't think Mohawk Hudson will take any more animals from them, and they had to set up a temporary shelter in their garage with cages. Do we have I know they're full right now, but what happens? I'm just curious.
So we have an agreement with them, they take our animals.
Okay.
So we're not really too concerned with that. I don't want to speak for Troy, but the issue wasn't that Mohawk wouldn't take their animals. The issue was one of finance.
Okay.
So Troy decided to send them to the county, and then they ran into an issue with, I take your dog in the city of Troy, but yet you got to drive all the way out to the edge of the county to get your dog. It was unfair. So they now, I believe they just opened up their own facility to house their dogs, which was probably very smart of them.
I appreciate that information. Sonia?
2 very quick follow-ups, just in response to some questions, and then I promise I'm done. In regards to the pick up after your dog signs, one of the items I'm personally interested in pursuing with DGS this year is putting waste bags in all city parks. and what that cost would be. It is something that I hear a lot from my constituency that they would like to see, so I'll be speaking to that tomorrow with DGS. The second thing is there was a great question over here about in conversation around the system that the city clerk has, and I was just speaking to our wonderful city clerk here. She's going to look into the cost for additional licenses for animal control to have access, and so that's hopefully something that we can pursue as part of the budget process as well.
That would be wonderful. Thank you very much, guys.
I'm sorry, with that, if there's no other questions, Lieutenant, thank you. We put you in the hot seat tonight.
Thank
and
you.
I
There's
really-
no such thing as a hot seat. Like I said, I'm a public servant.
Yeah,
You know,
we
she
appreciate it.
knows. I'll come here and I'll speak my mind, and I'll be forthcoming, and I have no issue with that whatsoever.
And we're here to help. I mean, and that's what we want to do. We want to give advice. We'll try to get the funding if, you know, like you heard, we don't have the wallet, but we can nudge people to see if we can come up with funding, whatever you need. But, yeah, thank you so
And
much.
I appreciate it.
Lieutenant.
Thank you guys very much. Enjoy the rest of your night.
Thank you. I am going to ask if we can have an executive session for a 5-minute briefing on the CPRB nomination process.
I'd like to make a motion to go into executive session.
So I need to cut in here. The motion needs to be specific, so I know you'd like to discuss this
Okay.
specific personnel matter of particular people who you might be considering for that position.
Yeah, I'd like to, as you said, do I have to repeat it, or?
Sure, you can take what I
Sure.
said.
Okay, thank you. And we have
Second?
you need a second? Okay. And Shaniqua, you can.
All in
staff can
favor?
stay. Oh, all in favor?
Aye.
Say aye. And staff can stay. Keith, just for a few minutes, if you don't mind, and the press has to pop out too. Hello, everybody. We're back out of executive session, and I'm going to have a call for adjournment of the committee for the meeting.
I make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you.